Welcome to the P.T.S.D podcast with your host, comedian and military veteran, Bernard the Laugh Therapist Hines, where we discuss P.T.S.D, processing traumatic situations differently, and give you tools to help you overcome the stigma of seeking help. If you're ready to be inspired, then welcome to the Stigma-Free Zone. Here's your host, the Laugh Therapist himself, Bernard Hines.
What up, good people? What up, good people? How are you doing? How is everybody doing today? Listen, y'all. Thank y'all for being here today, y'all. I got a great show today. Thank y'all for tuning in, whether you're tuning in the morning, the evening, wherever you're tuning in. But listen, welcome to the PTSD Processing Traumatic Situations Differently podcast. Here, we try to inform, enlighten, and become advocates for one another as we learn more productive ways to process our trauma. Always remember, as a therapist, I am not licensed. I am just medicated, all right? Welcome to the Stigma-Free Zone. And as you see scrolling at the bottom, if you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed for today's content, please step away, regroup, and come on back. Listen, y'all, I got a beautiful young lady, Miss Cheron Johnson, y'all. She was going to be up here. We're going to be talking about parenting from prison. Parenting for prison. It is a powerful message of resilience. So right now, welcome coming to the stage, Cheron Johnson. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being part of this podcast. It is truly a blessing to have you. I met this young lady. She was making cakes.
Absolutely.
Cakes were the bomb. Cakes were the bomb. I loved it. So it is great having you here, and I thank you for your transparency, your openness, and your resilience that you are putting forth. So if you don't mind, just tell people just a little bit about yourself.
All right. My name's Cheron. I'm from Detroit, born and raised. 313. Yeah, we was almost there.
Yeah, but
they let me down.
Okay.
But next year we coming back stronger.
Oh, got it.
From Detroit. I have one son who's 10. I'm a product of 5 generations, 78 grandchildren. I'm in the first generation, number 20.
Ooh.
I'm number 13, actually.
Okay.
I'm 28. So out of my entire family, I was the first one that ever graduated from college. So
wow. So what college was that?
I went to St. Leo University, actually.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
St. Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Yep.
Listen, y'all, we gonna dive right into this podcast, this interview right here. Now, you said that you're parenting for prison, so evidently you did serve time in prison.
I did.
And what were your charges?
So my charges were money laundering and filing a false statement on a tax return.
Okay.
So essentially tax fraud.
Wow, IRS account. They got all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And how long did you serve?
So I was in there 4.5 years, equating to almost 72 months. I did an RDAP program, would allow me to get 18 months off my sentence. So I was able to come home a little bit earlier than normal.
Okay. That's good. Now,
yes,
this is what we really gonna get into. You did your time, your resiliency, and you had your son your son was out while you was in prison.
Yep, he was.
And how did it affect you?
That was a very, very tough pill to swallow.
Okay.
And I say that because the day I turned myself in, I was leaving and I had to leave my son in the driveway crying. He was like, "Mommy, you gonna take me to school?" I knew I wasn't taking him to school, and I knew I wasn't picking him up that day.
Wow. So leaving him was one of the most, I'm sure, traumatic experiences in your life. So how did you cope with that?
I coped with it the best way I could. I'm not going to say it was easy. Maybe the first 30 days I was just distraught. I was very distraught, just trying to get that balance. So for me, and I guess the most impactful thing, because normally most children have one or the other parent gone.
Correct.
But in his case, both his parents was gone. So he didn't have that, I'm going to run to daddy or I'm going to run to mommy, So he had that empty space in his heart, like for real. So for me, after about 30 days, I said, hey, I can't let this get the best of me.
Okay.
And I had to pick up where I knew how. So I had to start parenting from behind the walls, whether that was getting on the phone every morning when the phones came on. Hey, have a good day at school. I'm going to pray with you. How did you sleep last night? We eating breakfast for those 15 minutes, and literally phone cuts off in 15 minutes. It's not no warning. It's, hey, there's a beep. You got 5 minutes to say whatever you need to say. And that's that. Once it hang up, to hang up. When he was get off the bus every day from school, I was on the phone. Every birthday, every holiday, I was on the Skype. I would send gifts. I would send money off my books home to him, so my mom could get him Christmas. And we would sit there and unwrap gifts on Skype, just like we right here on Zoom. I mean, we would unwrap gifts. So, we would talk about things. I would hold conversations with him, and I just tried to be present in the absence as much as I could. My mom would send me pictures, just day-to-day stuff, just to kind of keep me in the loop on what's going on.
Wow. I know for me being in war, we had a lot of people telling us, man, this feel like we in prison. No, we weren't in prison. We was in war. We weren't in prison. We could move around. Yeah. Wow. So I can't even say I can imagine. I can't say. So I know people always say, or I heard folks who have been in prison, hearing the door slam behind you.
Yeah. So the great thing about me was I was in a camp. So I was in a lower level camp. So I was not behind actual fence or walls. I just had like a little raise up gate, so but they let you trust you. So I was able to move around. But the crazy thing is, you had counts. So when they say it was lockdown time, to be where you were supposed to be. So, but to that statement, when I walked into the R&D, which is receiving, and they tell you just detach everything you came with. So you taking off all your street clothes, jewelry, everything's me and mail back home. Only thing you could take in there with you, you couldn't even take your ID. Only thing you could take in there with you. Matter of fact, I did take my ID and my birth certificate. That's all I could have.
Wow.
And at that time, that's all I was able to carry in there just to prove who I was. Everything else had to be sent back home. I couldn't take no Bible. I couldn't take none of that. Everything that you thought you could have, no, you couldn't take none of that.
Wow.
So it was just like, wow, this is really, really reality. Like, and I remember walking up the hill, because it's like a really, really big hill. You have everything that you need, from your blanket to pajamas, everything. And they put you in like these little kids. You remember like them old pumpkin seeds? That's what I'm walking over here with, some old pumpkin seeds on.
Right. Okay.
And I'm like, okay, all right. So you looking around, and you feel isolated. You feel like I felt disconnected. Like I don't have nothing here.
Right. Wow. And I'm gonna ask this question, and I want people who might be feel a kind of way about this situation to please step away. But did you ever feel like giving up?
I did, several times.
Okay.
Several times.
And
I would say, like, I went in on September 16th of 2016.
Okay.
My birthday is the holiday. I'm a Thanksgiving baby. So that first holiday was like very, very tough for me.
Okay.
I remember I had a visit that my sisters and my stepmother came to visit me, but I was sad because I couldn't go with them.
Right.
So I remember sleeping that entire day, like, this can't be my life. And I was counting days, but now I was like, okay, this is day 90. But when you hear 90 months or 72 months, because my original sentence was 90 months. When you hit you 90 days on 90 months, there's no compare. You like, what are you counting for? Because at the end of the day, it ain't ended no time soon.
Right.
It's not ended no time soon. So you're frustrated.
Wow. And being that you wasn't a person that went, some people go to jail or prison over and over and over. That wasn't your lifestyle.
No.
So right.
One and done. One and done. One and done. I hit that thing and I quit. Yeah, I was done.
That is awesome. Listen, how hard was it to reconnect with Zachary when you came out?
For me, it was not hard. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
For me, it was not hard because I kept that relationship going while I was
Okay.
away.
Okay.
That was the best thing because from him, a lot of people, and I tell you this, a lot of people lie to their children, tell them they're in college. I know a lady that told me, she told her son she was in the military. People told them they was away at college. At the age of 2, my son had just turned 3 when I left. I told him to his face, "Mommy has to go away." And he said to me, "You going to jail, right?" I said, "Yes." So it was no secret to him
Correct.
where I was. So, we walked, we talked, and I remember he asked me when we was walking around our complex. He said, "Mommy, did you really rob a bank?" And I'm like, "No." And I said, "Well, where did you get that from?" He said, "Well, I don't know. I just overheard people." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Zachary, no."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "When you get older, I'll explain to you what the terminologies were that,
Okay.
mommy was, in prison for."
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't hard at all because he was just happy to have his mom back in his space.
Correct.
Um, and he's a child who he doesn't show emotions well.
Okay.
So I know he internalizes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it affected him, he didn't let it display to
Okay.
me. Um, and I say that strongly because I remember the first visit he came, I was bawling.
Mm.
Uh, And he wiped my tears and he said, "Mommy, be a big girl. It's gonna be okay. I'll come back to see you soon." And I'm like looking at him. I said, "Wow, I gotta straighten my shoulders up," because at the time he was only 4. He's saying this to me,
Mm.
so that lets me know I had to be a better version of me just for him
Okay.
because he wasn't feeling what I was feeling. But of
Okay.
course, my mom said when he got in the car, he was like depressed and,
Mm-hmm.
he would just look out the window and tears were shed and he would just fall asleep. So it wasn't hard reconnecting because I did, Bernard, a lot of things.
Okay.
Before I left, I bought books where I could record my voice to him. So when he
Mm.
wanted to go to sleep at night, it was like I was reading to him.
Okay.
I was giving him messages through these stories. I wrote him letters before I left, stuff that he can hold on to as when the spaces got lonely. So
Okay.
when I came back and I remember getting off the bus and he looked at me and I looked at him, we stared at each other eye to eye, and he was like, "Mommy, you here?" I said, "I'm here."
Wow. Wow.
And that was just that.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say a lot of people, I tell this story to many of people, but what they don't know is the impact.
Okay.
I remember talking to him on the phone one day, Bernard, and he said, "Mommy, I had a talk with God in my sleep." And I
Mm.
said, "What?" Zachary was about 5. And he said, he told me, "You were going to be home when I was 7." And I'm doing the
What?
math or not. I said, "No, that's not true." He said, "I know it is." He said, "God told me." He began to cry. And my mom is in the background, like, "Zachary, no, she trying to get him not to believe that." He said,
Correct.
"No, Nana, I know what God told me. My mama be home when I'm 7 and my dad will be home when I'm 8." He said, "And I'm believing it and I'm praying for that." So I always tell everybody my son prayed me home. And
Mm.
if I don't say nothing else today, my baby prayed me home. I got out March 17th, 2020. That COVID had hit like 3 days prior to that was St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
COVID
Yep.
had hit
Mm-hmm.
that weekend. They shut the whole prison down. They said we're not letting anybody come in, but we still letting people go out. So I was able to leave March 17th, 2020. My son's birthday is July 29th. He turned 7.
Ah, man.
So I said, "Okay, God, something with him."
Correct.
And up and all for those 2 years or year and a half, we prayed, we talked.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, his dad was still imprisoned. So I said, "Okay, let's see if this is what God told him to be true."
Okay.
COVID was still heavy and strong. His dad was in quarantine for like 9 months. He was granted a particular law that knocked his time down. He was able to finish his time at home August 22nd, 22. His dad came home. Zachary had just turned 8, July 29th.
And the kids shall lead them.
So literally, COVID was a gift and a curse for both of us.
Correct. Okay.
But the biggest caveat and the biggest takeaway, my baby prayed us home. And
That's
he
powerful.
stood on that. He stood on that. So I tell anybody, believe it. My
You're
baby
right.
prayed me home. That's
Correct.
all I say. My baby prayed me, because it was nothing but God and him that had that conversation, and it came to reality. So that lets me know the power of God, the power of strength. Even if I didn't have the strength, my son had enough strength for me to get me to the space to be back in his arms.
Wow.
So the reconnection was nothing for me. It was only up from here when I landed my feet on the ground. Um, and when I walked out of prison, I wasn't looking behind me, because if I looked behind me, I was coming back. So
Okay.
I looked straight ahead.
Okay.
I didn't even look in the mirror. I just looked straight ahead. And I said, God, let your will be done. Whatever this process looked like, I'm trusting you. Because that's one thing my bishop said before I left. Trust the process no matter what it looks like. And I didn't know what at home looked like. What I did know was I had a college degree. What I
Okay.
did know that I was a felon. What I did know that employers get paid off of hiring people like me. So just hiring me alone, I'm a tax write-off of 20 grand. So I'm coming in the gate with something, a piece of paper, 20 grand to offer you, and experience and whatever it is. Because I was a first-time offender, had never been in trouble. So I had a very successful resume. I was
Correct.
very
Okay.
strong in my resume. So I knew what I could stand on, and I knew I could articulate myself very well. So the resilience parts for me, that was a no-brainer, because I knew I didn't want to go back, and I knew I had to show my son that I could bounce back. So my very first job, I went to Smithfield Packing, and I was
Okay.
packing meat, and I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not doing this."
Yeah,
I owned a
there, though.
business. I owned a business,
Right.
and I was a supervisor. This ain't it.
Correct.
So I say, you know what? I'm gonna give it 6 months. 6 months. I bought my car with all the money I had from prison
Okay.
and family that supported me. Bought my first car, cashed out 5,000.
Okay.
Got my apartment 2 months after coming home, 2-bedroom. They approved me in 24 hours. So everything that everybody say, no fellas can't do this, no fellas can do this, because I had favor.
Wow.
The director over the halfway house that I was in, she was very good friends with my godmother,
Okay.
which my godmother was in the federal system for 27 years. So she had already put her blessings on me. She dropped those nuggets all around me. So favor was covered all around me during this whole season of whatever this trust the process that Bishop talked about looked like. So I already had favor with the judicial system already. I had one of the best jobs in prison. I was working for human resources. So I got to go out the gate every day.
Okay.
So I was good.
Right.
It was painful, but I was good.
Good. Correct.
But
but you wasn't a hardened. You was really a good person. Period. Yeah. That was just
still is.
Like everybody else just got caught up. Yeah.
You just got caught up. But I don't know. I can't even sit here and lie to you and say, because you want to know your why. Like, God, why did you favor me in a season that was supposed to look so ugly? But I say that because he made me an example for other people who don't know how to go through trauma and deal with it and bounce back.
Come on.
So I'm that voice. And I strongly believe that I'm that voice for people who don't know how to be resilient, who don't know how to, when they back up against the wall, come out swinging no matter what, because you can still come out on top.
Correct.
Even how traumatic it may seem. And for me, I had never even had a speeding ticket in my life. So I was scared of and to this day, if I see sirens, and I'm not going to even lie, I could be in my son's school and I could hear a bunch of keys on the janitor, and that's a trigger for me.
That's right.
Because it reminds me of count time and when the guards are coming. So I still deal with that alone.
Okay.
But I try to buckle out. Or, when you somewhere and there's a bunch of people, I don't do well with people standing over my shoulder because that reminds me of that space. But I still push forward past all of that.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that it's not easy, but if you got your mind, it's mind over matter. That's my body was there, but I didn't let the prison take my mind, because once they had your mind, you're institutionalized. And I knew for sure they wasn't going to institutionalize me.
Right.
So I created that space for myself based off of my support from my child and God and my family, just hearing that in the community portion. And the crazy part about it is a lot of people don't even know. I was talking to Bishop and Elder from prison. I said, who does that?
Yeah, right.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that was like that was for me, I probably had the best support system.
Yes, I'm about to say yes.
The best support system.
Because even though we knew you, we was good, all good. We didn't want to get into your business once, but all we knew to do, stay on the outside, pray, is be there for her and stuff like that.
And I would say, we got an amazing church.
Yes, we do.
We got an amazing church. And I can say, if it was not for the support of the Mount, I probably wouldn't have made it.
I believe.
Honestly.
I believe.
It was the people of whether they sent messages through people to get to me, or I have a good friend, she was at the Mount, she would go up to Bishop and Elder and tell them stuff, or Elder would say, call me at this time, or we would just send an email and I said, hey, Elder, just checking in. Or Bishop would say, I heard you doing good. I never forget the day I came home. I text Bishop. I said, I'm home. He said, I already got the word. You was home. You good. So it's stuff like that. Like,
correct.
And I'm like, the church, one thing about it, and to his statement now, church is supposed to change lives. They never judged me.
Yeah.
Everybody at the church supported me. They embraced me. They loved me unconditionally. And that's what I hold on to. And I'm very, very grateful for that space.
Correct.
Because I can't say that I would be any of less than a woman if it was, without them, because I stood on that. And I feel like if a church can back you that strong from hours away, you can push through this.
That's right.
It was a no-brainer.
That's right. I told you it saved my life.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. Like,
correct.
So it was plenty of days I thought about it, but I would look up on my little cork board, I would see my son, and I said how to get back to him, or just hearing his voice and saying, "Mommy, I love you," and he would just pray. I couldn't ask for a better child in this space.
Right.
I couldn't.
Correct. Wow. So when he's doing something, folks see the mama over there yelling, they can be like, why she all doing? Y'all, you don't know.
Yeah, because you don't know our story, and you can judge it all you want, but you don't know our story, because at the end of the day, I do have a story.
Correct.
And I'm a testimony for somebody. I'm a strength for somebody, and I know that for a fact. I believe that deep down in my heart. I get a lot of people ask me all the time, just like you ask me, how did you connect with your son? Because everybody's story isn't like that.
Correct.
Some people some people, children can't stand them, but some people, they go back because that's what feels comfortable to them. That wasn't comfortable for me. It wasn't.
It's what they know, right? Yeah,
it's what they know. It's a learned behavior, and until it only took me one time to be scared straight.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my one-hit wonder.
Got it.
And I promise you, on everything I love, I stand tall. And I now in its days, I fight for women who was in that space. I just came back from I did a women's leadership justice lab about 3 weeks ago. I did that out in LA. They flew us out. We graduated in the backyard of the owners of Fiji Water. It was really dope.
Wow.
And they graced me with a recognition from the state of Los Angeles, or certificate. It was really, really humbling. And I was surrounded by women who were impacted by incarceration, judges, lawyers, people who really were successful. Like, and don't get it twisted. A lot of people think, when you go to prison, it's just a bunch of drug dealers and a bunch of everything.
Okay.
I'm here to tell you, you got politics up there. You got judges. You got lawyers. You have people who were actually big time people. Like, and you sit back like, geez, like at that time I looked around. I'm not the only one who with a successful career who got tore down and have to build back up. So it's really like if you was on the inside looking in, you'd be like, this is really a business in itself with just structure, because So when this leadership program that I'm in is women that's just like that.
Oh, wow.
Judges, lawyers, social workers, people who had successful careers with PhDs, masters, that just the white collar side of the business when it comes to the federal judicial system just caught them up. Because
Okay.
there's a big difference between white collar and drug. Drug is what it is. When you get into white collar, it can be as simple as tax fraud, money laundering,
Mm.
um, Medicaid fraud, stuff that's dealing with the government. So
Okay.
yeah, you can be very successful and
So
still get caught up.
caught up. That's right.
So you sitting in a space with people who know their stuff. But we come back to help the people who don't have that level of success like we
Okay.
had, who have degrees. I was in there with people who didn't even know what an iPhone looked like. One girl had been locked up so long, she didn't even know coming out that the soda machines were push buttons and it just come down. She was used to the old click clack,
Wow.
but she was intimidated by it and got scared and broke
And
down and started crying.
that is relearning.
Yeah.
That's why people say you go back to what you know.
Yeah.
I know back there. Wow.
Yeah. Some people didn't even have a GED.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I was just some people didn't even know how to read. I was just so blessed, and I say, you know what, I gotta do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I gotta show the statistics show just because you go to prison don't mean you can't bounce back. I gotta show that you can be something after something that's so traumatic.
Yes.
So I use that as my leverage. Every time somebody said, no, you're a felon, you can't get this job, I said, you can't tell me no. I'm gonna let God tell me no.
Correct.
Because what's for me is gonna be for me.
Mm.
And I stood exactly on that. I remember working in the warehouse. They kept saying, you just a laborer, you just a warehouse worker. And I said, I'm a laborer, warehouse worker with more than what you got.
Come on.
So you can't tell me what I can't interview for, because what my accolades mean that I can interview for anything that I want to may not mean that I can get it, but I'm putting my face card in front of everybody's face to show that I'm hungry, I'm ambitious, and you know, and a lot of people don't know how to sell themselves. Me, that's my background. I know how to sell myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when everybody asks that elephant in the room, and I tell, and I when I'm doing seminars and I'm educating people, and you get to that one elephant in the room, why is there a gap in your employment? A lot of people get scared at that space.
Okay.
Guess what? You had a family hardship. They don't know what that hardship was. You could have took off some time because somebody in your family could have had an ailment that required them to be bedridden. It could have been anything, but you got to know how to sell yourself through a trauma.
Wow.
Because guess what? You got to sell yourself.
Sell yourself through a trauma. I like that.
And that's exactly what I did. And they say, well, okay, background come back. And I always thought when they run my background, oh my Lord. Guess what? I educated myself on that. Realistically, they put that up there. Are you a felon? Because they want to see what you're going to say. And to be honest, employers do not want to pay for a federal background check.
Okay.
So only thing comes up is state. Unless you're going up for a government job, a school and education, that's the only time it's going to come up. Outside of that, it's going to say zero, no record of nothing, because employers do not want to pay the extra fee for a federal background check. And that's what I have. So a lot of times my record come up. I do not have any barriers because you don't see it, but my integrity won't let me lie. So yes, I do put it on paper. One, because my at the time when I was on probation, the judge required me to say it. She wanted me to put me in a space to talk about it. Whatever. That's what you want me to do. Because you want me to be deterred. But no, I was not deterred. I talked against it. Yes, I'm a felon. Yes, this is what I did. Yes, this is what my plea agreement was. However, my work ethic still speaks for itself. So I still did not get denied from a job because of my background.
Okay.
I maybe got denied because I wasn't qualified enough. I had a master's, but there's no job or no success path that I've been in that I've been denied because of my background ever.
Wow. You are epitome of what this podcast is. Processing traumatic situations differently. Because you are educating people. You are educating us. And when you pull your name up on social media or on the internet, it just shows that you've been to prison.
Yep.
This right here is who you really are, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're trying to get out, is that this is who you really are. You had a bump in the road just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And you are making the best of it. I want you to tell me about that time when you went to get your passport.
So listen,
When you
listen, let me tell you something. So I went to get my passport and I drove up there to DC. I drove up there. My appointment was at 8:30. They say come back at 11. I'm gonna give you the speedy version. So I'm sitting there, 2:00 roll on. I'm like, I still ain't got I'm like, these people about to say, ma'am, because I had a passport before turning myself in.
Correct.
And that was one of the things I had to give it over. And I said, these people ain't gonna call me. I came up here and spent this $200 for nothing. So the lady called me to the window. She said, ma'am, what's your name? Give me your social. I said, I've been waiting. They told me come back at 11. She said, it's being printed. We just waiting on it to come down. She said, so just give us some time. And I said, okay. So then she called me back in. She said, you still waiting? I said, yeah. I said, Lord, I'm praying. My palms are sweating. I'm nervous.
Right.
I can't even sit still.
Because you had a trip already.
Yeah. I can't even sit still because I'm like, oh my God. But Bernard, when I tell you they called my name and I opened that thing up, I was like, you know how the gold come out? I was like, look at God. I listen, I started sending mass text messages. I just sent them a picture of the front of the book. People texting me, God don't play with you. Listen. That defined me.
Wow.
That defined that I got me back. I
Right.
can live again. Because when I got off paper, I had 3 years probation. That was cool. It was fun. It felt good. But because the thing of it is, when you're on probation, you got to get permission to leave and all of this stuff.
Okay.
You got to tell them who's funding your trip. How did you get it's a whole criteria. Who funded your trip? How long you gonna be gone? Where you staying? I need contact phone. Like, it was just ridiculous.
Right. Okay.
But let me tell you, when I got that passport, I ran to the airport, and so they was like, "Come up." I was like, "Bing!" Yeah. One in my head, I ain't gotta ask nobody to go nowhere no more. Like, I just wanted to book a trip to Richmond just so I could just say I had to ask nobody for nothing.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that was for me. That was a milestone because
right.
Gradually I'm still getting my myself back.
Okay.
Because I did lose myself. I lost myself. Depression lost me.
Right.
I lost myself in depression and even to this day, some things are familiar to me and it puts me back in that depression state and it puts me back and remind me of when I first came home because you don't know what the road looks like. So I still struggle in that area, but so I strongly encourage therapy. I do my therapist, we talk about it. We process those things. And I, process journaling because those lonely nights when can't nobody answer why you emotional, why you crying. I know what I'm going through. And I would say one thing prison did do to me, and I know it does a lot of people. Like for me, I shut down big time. I'm very quiet. I'm still sociable and I'm a social butterfly. But that experience, because you don't have no friends in there, it allows you to be quiet and just trust yourself. So I struggle with that even still, like that trusting part, because when rubber meets the road, you find out who's really there for you.
Wow.
And in that time, I found out who was really there for you. And one thing you always know elders say is the 3 R's: remove, reveal, and replace.
Replace. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
and
true.
and those were 3 things I did. And she would always say, or Bishop would always say, pull back your curtain. God, pull back my curtain so I can show who my enemies are. And so when rubber met the road, I knew who was really rocking with me. So I lost some people along the way. And I'm okay with that.
Right.
But still in the essence, knowing how to deal with that part of shutting down, it's still a process. I won't talk to a lot of people, not because I don't want to, it's just because I'm only comfortable with me. I only trust me.
Okay.
And nobody else can relate. And when I first came home, honestly, I felt like I couldn't talk to nobody unless you was in prison, or unless, because those are only people that you could relate to.
Can I say
Nobody,
something on that? That's
yeah,
what a lot of veterans do when they come back from the war.
do that.
I can't talk to anybody. I got to talk to a veteran because they understand. Yep.
Yeah, so, and that's the same even to this day. Nobody, for me, I could talk about this all day long, but I'm more comfortable when I'm talking to a space of people who've been impacted by incarceration and be like,
Okay.
yeah, I do remember that. And
Mm-hmm.
you reminiscing
Mm-hmm.
on stuff. Yeah, I remember those things. It's easier because they understand where you came from.
Correct.
It's just like somebody, when you're having a conversation, like you just said, veterans or somebody that's been to poverty. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I remember that. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, it's the same thing. So I didn't feel safe talking to somebody that was not impacted by incarceration. I'm a lot better with it now, but it's still easier for me to sit and flow with somebody who's had a trauma
Right.
and felt it. And it might not be fair to your loved ones, but that's what's safe to me.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So I have to operate in that safe space until I step away from that realm and be like, okay, I got it. So that's why I process with my therapist to help build me up in that area.
And what it is a process.
Yep.
It is a
Yep.
process. And I'm sure you have people around you who guard that for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
Yep.
got to have that safe space. And
Yep.
listen, y'all, we have been talking to Miss Cheron Johnson. She has been breaking down parenting from prison. She's been breaking down some layers of stuff that we didn't even know. And I'm sure while you was in prison, you befriended. I know you said you couldn't be friends, but I'm sure people came to you as probably the spiritual one.
Yeah. I remember that the one time this young lady, she was Muslim, and
Okay.
her brother passed away in prison. He was killed. When that red phone rang, it was either somebody was dead or you had a visit. So you knew
Mm.
that. And it was the old school phone. It was the rotary. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. So when you knew they called, that's what it was. And I remember they were saying, "Hey, Cheron, can you pray?" And I'm like, "Okay," And I did what I knew. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
got on my knees and I prayed for her. And I remember one of the Muslims coming up to me and she said, "Baby, you know how to pray." And I said, she was like, "You a praying warrior." Then I had another person that came up to me and said, she Muslim." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I'm only doing what the community asked me to
Me to
do."
do.
And I said, "For me, no, I don't practice the Quran,
Mm-hmm.
but I know we serve a higher power to the
God.
same capacity.
God of your
So I'm
understanding.
gonna do
Mm-hmm.
my godly thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
y'all can go do y'all Quran thing."
Correct.
Because I would be less of a Christian if I didn't put my stamp of what I know on it.
Correct. Wow.
And yes, you're right. I ran it. I did befriend some really, really good people. One of my best friends to this day, I met in prison. Um, One of my best friends, two, three of my really, really best friends, I met in prison, and we just clicked and we kept it like that.
Okay.
It was so crazy because one of the older ladies, and when you get there, you link up. Everybody 083, so you know everybody from Virginia. That's how you
Mm.
know.
Right.
So
Right. Okay.
it's just like, oh, you from Compton? Oh, yeah. So that's how you link up.
Got
So
it.
they was like, oh, you a 083. So they're like, okay, what part? You telling Hampton Roads? Oh, me too. So I remember the one lady. She's I'm from Hampton Roads too. So we got to talk, and she was a deaconess, and it came to. I said, yeah, I go to the Mount. And she said, you go to the Mount? I play spades with Bishop and Elder all the time.
Wow.
So I said, wow. So it was just funny. So I met people like that. I remember even talking so much about the Mount, and the lady said, she said, I'm from Hampton, but she said, I heard about that church all this time. And we Facebook friends. I haven't bumped into her in church, but
Okay.
I do know she got home like 2-3 years prior to me. Since she's been home, she's been belonging to the Mount.
Wow.
So I know she hadn't been in that space before. So those moments like that,
Correct.
I knew, what I knew. And I just knew that, prayer works. I'm not going to say, I'm perfect and I pray every day. I'm not going to say I know all the Bible verses, but what I do know, in a time of distress, what you do, you pray and you lean on God. And I say that because one of our mutual great friends, Teresa Brown,
Yes, sir.
boy,
Yes, sir.
listen, when I have to always shout her out, because that's one of my greatest friends who
Wow.
is my sister. And I don't say that lightly, because with as busy as her life is, and y'all in the same business, that lady wrote me every other week
Wow.
a handwritten letter. She sent me pictures. She sent me cards. I love that lady with everything. I mean, there's nothing in this world that she couldn't do for me. I couldn't do for her.
Wow.
And I remember her telling me, she said it's my favorite Bible scripture, Isaiah 41:10. When you walk through the fires, I'll be with you.
Mm.
I stood on that thing. I prayed on that thing. And I always remember, God, no matter how hard it gets, you'll always uplift me with your righteous right hand. Teresa taught me that scripture, and that I got it through that. And I'm forever grateful for our bond, our friendship. And I tell her this all the time, and we laugh, we cry about it. But that's how you know when you got true friends, especially when they on a hierarchy where they could discard you.
Correct. Correct.
But and it's not because they want to,
Mm-hmm.
or it's sometimes they have to.
Have to. Mm-hmm.
But that lady stood 10 toes down with me.
That's awesome.
And I would never take that for granted.
She's a sweetheart.
And she's a heart of gold. I remember walking off that bus. She was right there.
Wow.
Right there. Like, so when you say rubber meets the road, you find out who really there. My good brother, I was telling LaTroy Brinkley, that's my brother. Same thing. Celebrity hairstylist held me down, 10 toes down. My church family, all of those heavy-hitter names. I'm like, this my squad right here.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And my heart and my soul, LJ, Keisha, all of them. Like, it's like I'm forever embedded to them. Like, it's nothing that they couldn't call me for to say, hey, I need you, where I wouldn't come running, because genuine, Bishop Elder, genuine people who just really be there in a time of distress. Like, really. So.
And you was a genuine person, and you have a heart of gold.
Thank you.
Cheron
and I
Johnson.
even when I saw your wife at Walmart, she couldn't even get to park because she was so happy to see me in person. And I was just like, people really mess with me, because the enemy try to play tricks on your mind and make you feel like nobody mess with you. But they do.
They do.
And you see it. And I saw it when people bump to me, say, I didn't know you was home. Oh my God. Look at you. Because I stayed in the house scared to come outside to face the world, because they're going to be pointing, they're going to be this. They say, I have people, you the cake lady. I know you. And I'm like, no, you don't. I remember I was working at Target. The girl say, I know you from somewhere. I said, no, you don't. She said, yes, I do. And I said, no, you don't. I said, I was just around the way. She said, no. She like, I can't pinpoint. I said, well, I had a business. She said, that's it. You own the cake shop. She said, you G's Cake Shop. She said, the best cakes in town.
The bomb.
And I said, nah. She said, you lying. That's you. And I said, you know what? It is. She was like, girl, you look so good. She was like, forget all that. She was like, I don't care what them people said. She said, I didn't know you personally, but I knew your heart.
Yep.
I knew
That's
you.
That's it.
She said, you did nothing but greet me and treated me with the utmost customer service.
Yep.
She said, you was in the community. You fought for the people. Anything somebody had going on community, you was there. She was like, so I don't care what that media said about you. That was not who you are, the picture that they tried to paint.
That's right.
And I said, you know what? You're right. And I started coming outside.
It just take one person that just, even people can see in us what we don't see in ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I am so honored to have you on this
Thank you.
podcast. It is a blessing to have
It's a
you.
pleasure. It's a pleasure.
I want you to leave some parting words to someone who might be going through, who might be about to go to jail or don't know if they're going, how they can make it through.
I will say this. As easy as it may sound and as hard as it may seem, Bishop told me, and I tell you the same thing.
Come on now.
Trust the process.
There you go.
I was sentenced to 90 months originally, like I said. And the key thing he said to me was 7 years. He said, in biblical terms, 7 years mean the year completion. So for me, I trusted that process. They took the old Cheron and they birthed a menace. Because there's nothing that can stop me. I done been through the worst part of my life. So anything that faces me now, I'm ready for it. So trust the process. Because sometimes God puts us in spaces not because we're in trouble, but it's to protect us. And for me, I learned, it was a learning behavior for me. I was addicted to working. I was addicted to the fashion, the this and the big this. I had to sit down and be grateful and learn me because I was losing myself in success because I wanted to make a point for my family or prove myself stronger. That was my learning. So I had to trust the process that I wasn't going there because I was technically in trouble. Yeah, I was. But that was my lesson, to trust that God got me no matter what that valley looked like, no matter how high it get, no matter how low it get. I had to learn me. So I'm the best version of myself now that I'm ever been because I could never be this transparent as I am now.
Come on.
I could never, because all that glitz and glam, the labels, all of this, it was hiding all that depression and that trauma. I was fighting my identity. I was fighting my confidence. I was fighting my own integrity. So prison helped me to be who I am. So trust that ugly process because God is going to birth something pretty from that ugly.
Wow. You gave me this process right here. I'm holding the rag. You and I deal with the PTSD and stuff like that. You're going to be the speaker to those women who are doing reentry. But when you went to prison, you washed your face.
Yeah.
You washed your face of who you thought you were. This is the real us.
Yeah.
And God will use whatever he has to use for him to get the glory out of our lives.
Absolutely.
And you are glowing. You are
Yes.
glowing and you are growing and you will continue to grow, Miss Cheron Johnson. Please follow her on social media. You are
Ceejohn, CEEJOHN on Facebook. Go ahead and follow me. I'm going to be having some stuff that is going to be popping out really, really soon.
Yes.
So just be patient with me. Next month, actually March 22nd, I will be speaking at the Hampton Convocation. I will be talking about resiliency for women that were impacted by incarceration.
Come on now.
There's a lot of people that's going to be on that panel that weekend. People like Siobhan Smith, Cornelia Futrell, Kenya Allen, some big names out there we're going to be bringing some heat. But for me, I'm going to be standing in the same space talking about resiliency and what it looks like. I'm going to be that word hope. I'm going to be that example for women. I'm going to be standing tall in the realm and in the physical so you can see it. So follow me on Facebook at CEEJOHN. I follow back. I respond. I also dropped a book too last year.
Come on now.
Removing the Fragments, Amazon bestseller. Shout out to my writing coach, Dio Greenway.
Okay.
So we dropped that last week.
I do remember that.
Removing the Fragments. So I do talk about other trauma that ties into my felony background. So I actually have the link up there if you want to go purchase one. Hey, I signed them myself. I sent them out. So yes, I
So
do
where can
have
they
some
find
big.
that book at?
So if you go to CEEJOHN, the link is actually on my Facebook page.
Okay.
If you do not see it, you could just inbox me. I send it right over to you. I'm always on my social media. I'm keeping everything up to date. So just stay tuned. Watch my Facebook for any updates or anything you need to know. Speaking engagements again, March 22nd. I will be at the Hampton Convocation Center. It is called the Well Woman Experience.
Wow. That is
Yes.
powerful. Listen, y'all, as I always say, for those who just listen to the podcast, you can also go to my YouTube page, The Laugh Therapist, and you can actually see the video of what we're doing on today. And listen, go forth, Cheron, do great things, and right now you are released from the stigma-free zone. God
Thank you. I
bless you.
appreciate you. God bless you.